Welcome back to another podcast episode where we help aspiring developers get jobs and junior developers grow. This episode is going to be a little bit different. We did a front-end mock interview. In fact, I invited a good friend of mine, Dan, who actually interviewed me for my second developer position. He volunteered his time to a brave soul in our community. His name is Noah. He's aiming for a developer position right now, and he volunteered to be on camera, do a front-end interview on camera. I hope you like it. I think this turned out really great. Now, this is going to be released on video and audio. I'm just going to be honest. If you're on audio, it's not going to be as good of an experience, but you are welcome to listen in. I will actually include a link to the video in the description for the audio. So you're welcome to listen in. Just want to give you a heads up, but let me know what you think about this new type of interview. And if you want to see more interviews like this, I'm happy to do more. Enjoy.
Cool. Awesome. Hey, Noah, good to meet you. Thanks so much for doing this mock interview with us. I'm Dan. I'm a front-end developer, currently working at Coinbase. Prior to that, I was working at Albert, where I worked for over 5 years. I was the front-end lead there. And I'm kind of treating this as a front-end interview for a more, let's say, junior to mid-level position, front-end specifically, using React. And yeah, thanks again for doing this. So just to give you a bit of background on how this is going to go, first, we're going to have a few conversational questions, just so I get a little bit about your background. We're going to go into some more conversational questions about HTML and CSS. And then we're going to start putting some of your skills to the test with some actual coding that we're going to be doing. First, we're going to be writing some more just straight JavaScript in a shared text editor. And then after that, we're going to be putting together a little project in React. So for the coding portion, and really for this entire experience, it's definitely not intended that you get everything right. It's not intended that you finish everything. It's really just to get a sense of just how you approach problem solving. So I encourage you to talk out loud as you're coming up with solutions. And yeah, super excited to be doing this with you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, why don't you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. My name's Noah. I have been coding for the last 2 years, teaching myself to code on the side. And I'd say about 8 months ago, I graduated from General Assembly's full-time software engineering. Yeah, pretty much since graduation, I've been working on multiple projects, hackathons. I've done sprint work with the team. And I have a buddy of mine that I work with every day, coding, going through prep work for interviews. I have done some interviews in the past. I'm currently doing some interviews now. So I'm looking forward to, adding this to my belt and have more practice with interviewing. So thanks for having me once again. Glad to be here.
No worries. Yep. And thank you for doing this. So yeah, I'm curious, what kind of got you into programming?
Well, it was during the time I was working with my previous employer. I was working as a salesman for his women's clothing company. And like many other clothing companies, he needed a website, but he didn't have the means to make one happen. So I took it upon myself because I did really care about his business and I wanted to help him. So I started learning on coding on the side to see if it's something I can help him with. And eventually I just ended up falling in love with it at first sight. And pretty much after I lost my job, I was hit with a fork in the road. I either, found something else, something that won't really be a career for me, or I could chase my dreams. And even though I wasn't, as good as I know I have to be, I pursued it. And I'm still, fighting after 2 years in this. So, hopefully I can do a little bit, I can do a little bit of good in this interview. So we'll see. Still working at it.
Cool. No, that's awesome. And yeah, I feel like a lot of folks, like myself included, learn because the job that you're doing isn't necessarily development, but it's like, sideways. It's like kind of adjacent to it. And then you slowly start picking it up. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that. That's awesome. And have you kind of gone like, have you decided what route you kind of want to take, like front end, back end, native? Yeah, like what?
Well, I started off with the team treehouse. Goodness gracious, team treehouse. I started off with that, and I did their front end web development track. So I started off with that, and the possibilities was just endless at that point. And after going through the boot camp, I realized there's a whole back end to it too, so full stack. And now I guess I'm very interested in both sides. So while I do a lot of work front end, I also do focus a lot of my time and energy understanding and learning the fundamentals for back end. Also, they're very translatable. After you do it for a while, I realize they're very translatable. Like if you do back end, you can transfer that over to the front end, and vice versa. It really helps.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially in my opinion, as the front end becomes more, I guess, like programmery, like with all these like front end frameworks, and it's almost like the front end it's just becoming more and more complex. So yeah, like a lot of the things that you traditionally just do on the back end are now moving to the front end, and yeah, totally agree that it definitely translates. Cool. Yeah. Just out of curiosity. So, you're on a learning track. What's something that you've learned recently that you think is really cool that you wouldn't mind sharing?
I'll say integrating APIs, using APIs, and just, I've done API work during the cohort, but you just learn so much in a cohort all at once that you can't really digest what you're taking in. And so I've been really focusing on API implementation, and then also frameworks too. Like I got to work with D3 for visualization, and just learning that was oh man, that was something else. So going through that and dealing with the moments where I felt stuck, but pushing on through, that was crucial for my learning, and it still is. I still get stuck all the time, but feeling that over and over again, you just get used to it. So I'm just practicing as much as I can.
Cool. So yeah, integrating APIs. Are you going? Is the current or the recent stuff that you've done more? How can I put this? Are you building out like REST endpoints? Or are you going like GraphQL? Is there like one technology that you're kind of following?
Yes, I am doing RESTful routing and endpoints for basically getting the information I want, and then creating programs to do what I wanted to do logically. So recently, I created an app that would go through an API of like actors, and if the actors' database of films that they have made matched up with another actor's list, then we would match those results of titles and get all the collaborations those two actors did. So being able to, go into the API, digging for those endpoints, and then, coming up with a logic to make this, transition into the front end was really exciting. And I was able to navigate through that in a collaborative team. So it was a very good learning experience. And there was a lot of challenges within the team too, just based on like time pressure and communication. So just navigating through those moments too within a team was very crucial. I feel like it kind of helped me realize what reality would be like if I were to work in a team.
Cool. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also thumbs up for picking up D3. That's a huge framework. Super, like you can do so much with it. It's very like, instead of like, like here's how you do this one thing, it just gives you a bunch of tools and you can kind of do anything however you want. So yeah, it's pretty massive. But
documentation on that for React is also way outdated. Like if you try to
Really?
look D3 up with React, yeah, you get a lot of old stuff, and it's crazy. So it's very tough.
Yeah, no, navigating bad documentation, I feel like, is such a part of this job, sadly. And it's never a good place to be, but something that just has to be done. Cool. So next up, I'm going to go to some just more basic HTML, CSS questions, a little bit more technical. If there's anything that you don't know, that's totally fine. And yeah, definitely just treat this more as it's really a conversation. So first question that I've got for you is, so like say that you're putting together a very basic, super basic web page, literally just like serving static HTML. What would be some things that you'd think to do like in the very beginning?
I mean, what would be the context? Would it be for like e-commerce, or would it be a landing page for a company that wants to introduce? Like, what's the context?
Yeah, so I guess and definitely please ask as many clarifying questions as you need. But I guess I just more mean like on the actual, as far as the content on the page go, like we can say that it's just like a simple like about me page. But like, what are some tags or some things that you definitely want to put on that page in order to make it work?
I see. Well, when I plan for landing pages, such as the one you describe, I normally just prepare some basic layout, just a template, boilerplate template for an HTML file, a structure. And I would just start thinking about the things that I would need. Actually, before I code, I would actually wireframe and see what kind of areas or sections or information I would like to put on that landing page. So I start there, and then I would start creating divs and containers to see how the layout will look like, and just kind of build it from the top to bottom. As I would if I were to scroll down the page, I would just sort of see what I want to see next, and I'll probably work on that thing to see it there, if that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And then in terms of so you mentioned having some sort of like starter template. Is there any content that would be going into that template so that you're not like, repeating all the tedious stuff that goes into every web page?
Right. So like things like, a hero, hero image, or navbar, header, footer type stuff. I know those things are going to be used. I like using, hamburger menus. So I have some hamburger menus set up. But yeah, typically I would, have those kind of already in my head, in my mind, that those are going to be there. But outside of that, like the content of the body, I would definitely be thinking about how I want to, style it, and then how I would want it to organize, and then just take it from there. Yeah.
Cool. I feel like because of the things that you just said, I feel like this next question you might have a good answer for, but could you explain to me what comes to mind when you think of semantic HTML?
Semantic HTML, to me, comes to mind for descriptive tags, tags that will, at first glance, kind of tell me what it's trying to do. So like class names, for example, if it's if the landing page is about me and there's a section where it's like literally about me, then I would kind of try to, tag it around there. And then, try to have the required attributes for, say, like accessibility. There's a lot of things that I'm not 100% with accessibility, but it's definitely something I like to think about as I work on a project.
Cool. Yeah, no, and accessibility is another one of those things that has there's so much to learn. Like one could really like become an expert in accessibility alone. And in fact, a lot of folks do. But yeah, could you kind of explain, like, let's say that I don't know what accessibility is. Could you kind of like explain to me like what it is and why it matters?
Right. So, for example, when it comes to design, and your client, your potential client is, or a visitor of the page is somebody who's maybe a little bit colorblind, and certain types of colors, would not work for someone. They'll have a hard time seeing the contrast of colors. So that's something to be mindful about. And when it comes to color themes and whatnot, also like the sizing of the components. Are they going to be on the phone? Are they going to be on a big desktop? And I would say there's also I guess screen readers where the HTML tags, according to what they have in their attribute properties, would really help in the case that one of your visitors, happens to be blind and has to go off the audio. So having semantics and descriptive tags in the HTML would be very, very crucial to reaching out to those audiences.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great answer. And thank you for explaining that very succinctly. Cool. Unrelated to those things, do you know what some of the HTTP request methods are? And could you give me an example of the difference between a couple of them?
Sure, absolutely. So HTTP requests would be something like get methods, post methods, delete, and put. And it would be for when, depending on what you want to do, like if you want to get access and read information off a database or an API, you can get use the get method for HTTP request, and then get that information and use that. And then another example would be if you were to use the delete method and just completely remove it from the database. That would be the method you would use there. So yeah. And then the other two would be when you're creating one that doesn't exist. And the put method would be when you want to edit something that's already existing and you just want to update it with new information.
Awesome answer. Yeah, that's definitely what they are and definitely how you would use them. Cool. Yeah, so another change of topic. And this one's super open-ended. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on mobile-first design and development?
When I think about, in retrospect, 2 years ago when I first, learned about HTML and what it is and all that stuff, and then I realized at that time they didn't have smartphones. So they kind of did their whole desktop, and then they design it according. They would actually have a whole separate link that would link to the mobile design page, and you'd have two different URLs. But now, with technology, especially with CSS and media queries, we can kind of adjust that all in one go. But the way that I found, just through experience and trying to do this and scaling things to be responsive, mobile first is definitely the way that I usually start out my projects. I try to think of the most minimal informations that I can use and need, and just have basic layout for at least to see it on my phone. And from there, I would set minimum widths to show other settings and sort of build it from there. Because in that way, whenever there's another resolution that you need to set the screen to, it's a lot easier to work in that way than the other way around, where you try to work backwards. Because then you're going to have to fix a lot of things. You have to maybe write double the amount of code. Yeah. So I'll do it mobile first and then scale it out.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's a really thoughtful reason to pick mobile first, because you do kind of get to basically end up designing for everyone. It's funny that you mentioned the separate link for mobile, because I feel like nowadays, at least in my experience, that's the more old school way of doing mobile friendly. But yeah, if you actually just design your stuff mobile first, and then as the screen size increases, modify to fit the extra viewport width available, yeah, you end up with really nice fluid designs.
I will say that when you are thinking about mobile first, though, that it does take a lot more time on the planning phase, just because you have a lot of things to consider for mobile and desktop. But the planning has been worth it for the times that I tried implementing mobile first. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, there's trade-offs to be sure. And actually talking about things like mobile first and responsive design and potentially like media queries, we're going to wrap up this section with a couple of questions about CSS. I'm curious, can you explain to me what specificity is in CSS?
Specificity would be, do you mean like selecting IDs versus classes, or I'm not sure if I understand specificity.
Yeah, no, you're totally on the ball. So yeah, the general idea, like what's the difference between a ID selector and a class selector, and how might what might I need to take into account when using them?
Right. So for just HTML tags, you can do like body, paragraph, divs, and they'll be kind of your general selectors. But then you get to use class to select things. So those would take precedence over just regular selectors. But over classes, you also get IDs, and IDs will be more dominant for there. So if you were to select an ID, it would take precedence over there. And then I think the one that's the ultimate one is inline styling. If you literally just have it in the inline, then that one will be the one that will take priority, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. So say that I have an element on the page that has a class and an ID. And let's say that the class is Dan and the ID is Noah. And somebody gave it the ID selector of Noah and said like color red. But I actually want to make that blue. How could I write a selector that has a higher specificity than that ID selector?
Well, I think you can do it in multiple ways. I think the one, I'm not sure if you're looking for this specific one, but there's like an important tag that you can put on something. So if you put the value as, hey, like the color is not red or blue, I forget which one you wanted, but whatever color you wanted, you can put an important tag on it, and that one will be the one that it will use.
Totally. Yeah. And you're right. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but adding an important will definitely override the current color that's set. Cool. Yeah. Last question about CSS. Do you know like what the box model is, and could you explain that to me a little bit?
I think the box model is that every element, I'm not 100% sure on this. So, but I think from my understanding, my limited understanding is, I see a box. Every element is a box, right? And a box will have a border, it will have margins, and it will have paddings and content. And so that will be the box model that you can work off of. And if you know the margin, if you know the border size and its properties, you can rearrange them to look exactly the way that you want it to. You can also align them to each side or top, bottom. You can make them center. There's a lot of different things you can do with them. But essentially, all tags are basically just boxes, literally rectangles. And then you can, mess around with its properties.
Cool. Yeah,
I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
The box model is it's the idea that, like you said, tags have the content, then padding, then border, then margin, and that's how we size things and place them on the page.
Yay!
Awesome, cool. Yeah, so great job so far. That wraps up the first portion of the interview. Next up, we're gonna go into the Vanilla.js part of the interview. We're just gonna write some functions. We're not even gonna run these functions, so it's not about making sure that they work 100% of the time. It's really just about taking some problems that we have and seeing if we can't solve them. So you've got a link that I sent over. If you could just share your screen real quick, we can go in there and start knocking some of this stuff out.
All right, so I just want to check that. Let's see here. I just want to make sure that you can see this, correct?
Yep, that looks great.
Perfect.
Cool. Yeah. So we can ignore the right-hand side. In fact, if you wouldn't mind just taking dragging the window to just be smaller. Yeah. So we can just ignore that for now. But yeah, so here's some prompts. Basically, this file is a bunch of prompts and empty functions. The idea is that you're going to fill out the body of the empty function. And then underneath every function, there's a little example of like how we might use it. And there's a little comment saying what we would expect. So if you have any questions about any of the prompts or really anything at all, I'm definitely here to help you out. But yeah, why don't we get started with the first one, and let's write a function that takes two numbers and returns the sum of those numbers.
Right, okay. So we have a function here, and I guess I'll use this function down here as the example. It's taking two arguments. So I know that I have one number and two number. And this function, I'm going to assume that it wants to add the two numbers fed into the function and return the sum. Is that correct?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, great. So I would have then, in this case, I would just say number 1 and number 2 as the parameters. And I would just return number 1 plus number 2. Would that be okay? Or did you want this to be in a different format? Well, I guess it's expecting a number 5, right?
Yep. So yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, and I figured we'd start off nice and easy. And yeah, there's I have literally no expectation for like how to implement them. It's really whatever you think is good. So yeah, let's move on and try to do this with a function that takes any number of arguments and returns the sum of all of them. So for instance here, 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 should return 14.
So would this be like an array, or no, it would just be just numbers, any amount of numbers?
Yeah, so if you can implement it with any amount of arguments, that's great. If we want to convert it to an array, that's totally fine as well.
Well, I'm just wondering like how I would make it so that the parameter knows how many to expect. Is there a way that we know how many to expect?
So there are actually a couple of ways, and I'm just going to dive in here real quick. So there's the old school way, and then there's the new way. In the old school way, and I'm just going to pop this open. The arguments keyword in a function is actually like an array of the arguments. There you go. That's like a keyword in JavaScript functions. That is an array representation of the arguments that were given to the function.
Interesting. So are you to say that then this would return me in this format?
I believe so, but don't hold me to that because I haven't actually used this method in a while, because there's a fancier, newer method of doing this. And now you can actually, these days you can say in the function argument ... args or whatever you want to call this. The name isn't important. And
that will just turn it into numbers, or like it'll spread the array.
Yep, that'll spread the arguments into an array. So
cool.
Yeah, I'll delete that, and so now args is an array of the numbers that were passed in.
Right. So in here, I would then, iterate over the array of the elements of the numbers, and have like a variable to hold that sum as it accumulates, and then return that sum. So I can instantiate here like let sum equals 0, and then I can start a for loop here to iterate through that argument.
Cool.
So I would say for let I equals 0, and I is less than the length of that args. I guess it would be args.length, right?
Yeah, so since we already spread the args, you don't have to spread them again. So you don't need the leading ... You can just say args. Yep.
Oh, okay, cool. Gotcha. Thank you for that. And then I would just iterate through the whole array. And I would say, args at each index, sum could be plus equal to that. And then after the loop ends, I would return the sum. And I think this would give you the correct answer.
Cool. Yeah, that totally checks out.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I didn't know about this spread operator for args in here like this. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so you can also use that to, let's say that you have, in this sum, I don't know why we would do this, but we can say like A, comma, B, comma, ... args. If you scroll up just a little bit. And then what this would actually do with the arguments below is A would be 2 because that's the first argument, B would be 3 because that's the second argument, and then args would be an array of 4 and 5 because those are like the rest of the arguments. But yeah, that lets you do some pretty interesting things.
Yeah, interesting. Very cool.
Cool.
So here would A would be A would be 2 and B would be 3.
Yep.
And then the args would just spread the rest.
Yep. So args would be 4 or 5.
4 or 5 contained. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. Yeah.
Cool. Let's see if we can't do this next one. So this one, we want a function that takes 2 strings and it returns true if the second string is in the first string in a case-insensitive way. And I would say if we don't want to solve for the case-insensitive way, we can just solve for like the case-sensitive, in which case string includes, and in the example would return false. But yeah, if you can think of a way to do this in a case-insensitive way, that would be great.
Right. So then we have two parameters here. Sorry, I'm just going to turn on my light real quick. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So here I would, I guess, be taking in 2 strings. So string 1 and string 2, and I want to check if the second string is in the first string. Is that correct? Yep. And so then there's a method here for strings, string prototypes. I think it's called includes. Actually, I think it is called includes. So if we say like string 1 includes, and then pass in the second string as the argument, string 2, I think this would give us true or false. And I think you mentioned something about if there's a way to not care about the case sensitivity. So in this case, what we could do is we could just say string 1 to lowercase and make everything that's inside there just lowercase. And then we can say then, well, does string 1 include string 2 to lowercase? And then that would pretty much make everything all the same case. And then we can return the result of that.
Yep. So everything you said just checks out. There is a bug in this function as it currently is written, in that So I guess my question is, would calling string 1 to lowercase modify the first string, or no?
I'm not sure about that. I would have to just check the MDN
Yeah,
for that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if.
I guess I can just tell you. So to lowercase returns a new string. So
it returns a new string.
Yeah. So it doesn't actually affect the value. So
okay, so then I can have like another, let temp or something like temporary string contain that, and then okay, so then let me see here. It'd be since temporary string will be the new format.
Yep.
I would have to check, does temporary string include string to lowercase? And I think then this might do the trick.
Yeah, for sure. That would totally work.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So we've got, let's see, we've got here. In the interest of time, let's do one more. But I'm curious, out of the next three, so I feel like, let's see here. So you got get names, which the intention is to return an array of the value of the objects that have that name in them. We've got get largest number index, which the idea is to return the index of the largest value in the array. And then we have this last one is the hard, in my opinion, the hardest question out of all of them, which is to return a function that lets us call, if you can see the example here, we want to be able to say like a wait delay and then a number of milliseconds, and then implement that in some way, shape, or form. So out of those three, do you have a preference for one that you'd want to tackle? So the last one's dealing with promises. Then we've got some object manipulation and more array manipulations.
Yeah, I think with the async function, I understand what it's doing there. It's basically setting a timeout, right? I think it's set timeout. And then after we want to do something with it, maybe console logging it, and then we just want to await that return, right? But I'm not. It's kind of vague. I'm not sure. If the time is of the essence right now, I would rather do something a little more, I guess, simple than the last one.
Cool. Absolutely. Yeah, that totally works.
Yeah. So any of the other two, I think, will be okay. Yeah.
Perfect. Let's do get names.
Get names. Sounds good.
Yep. So the idea here is, if we look at line 49, how it's being called, the idea is that get names takes an array of objects and it returns an array of the values for the name property of those objects if they have one. So as you can see here, the objects being passed have a equals 1. So in the return, we don't expect anything. We really expect, the strings Jane, Mark, and Sophia. So yeah, the idea is given an array of objects, returning an array of the names of any objects that have that name property. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yes, it does. I think it does. So the argument would be an array of objects, right?
Yep.
So it would be an array of objects. And we can just say, I guess, array. It'll be an array. And that's what we're looking for is within the array of objects, we want to see if the key equals to name. And if so, then we return that value of whatever that is, right? So we're going to need to loop over the array and check inside that loop if the object contains a property named name. And if so, we can enter that information and push it to like a resulting array that will contain all the names. And then at the end of the loop, we can just return the results. And I believe that would do it.
That totally checks out.
That checks out with you? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I guess what we can do here is we can start with the iteration of the array. We can say for let I equal 0 and I is less than the array length. And here we would now be iterating. So like if we say array I, that would be the object at each section, right? And at this point, since we are inside an object, I think object has also a prototype method called has own property. I believe that's what it is.
That's totally what it is.
I think it has own property, but that would be a way to check if it has anything that's that's named. So let me just look this up because I don't remember. It was has own property, right? So this would be give us true or false, right? True or false, and we would check it through the property, right? So if this property has property called name, then this would give us true, right? So we can say then if that's true, equaling to name. Well, yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing with this. That's Anyway, let's see.
Super true, but you're missing a closing parenthesis there.
For sure. So then here, that means we have a match, and now we want the value of that. So we would say array at I dot name, and we would push that into like results. And we can, instantiate it here. And we can do that for every object. And if it has it, we'll just go ahead and push that name. And then after the loop ends, we can return the results array. I think that should do it.
Totally. Yeah. Honestly, pretty impressed that the has own property just came to mind because that's a super helpful method, but I feel like one that I don't see that often. And it's definitely cleaner, in my opinion, than checking for like dot name, just because, I personally like using that because it returns true. Only that object actually has the thing, and it's not in the prototype chain. So it's just a little bit safer, in my opinion. But awesome. This has been honestly great so far. And yeah, so why don't we, if you just want to give this a save, and then we can jump into source /app. And then now we can start talking about the next portion of the interview, which is going to be building out a bit of a, so it's going to be a React project. The idea is that we're going to be there a Pokédex-like thing, and I'm just going to go over the requirements there on the right. So we're going to be implementing a Pokédex, and I think at least I like to get some visual idea of what I'm going to be working on. So why don't we click the designs and design specs on the right-hand side? So it's in the, it's the link in the, So can't stress this enough. It's not about making it look perfect. This is literally just an idea for like how it'll end up looking if we get through the styling portion. That said, definitely more interested in building out the functionality. So the general idea here is that we're going to have some sort of select at the top that lets you pick a Pokemon, and then based on the value that is selected, we're going to be loading a sprite of the Pokemon, its name, and a little description. And then at the bottom, we're going to have a couple buttons, next and previous, where if you click, so if you're on Bulbasaur, which is Pokemon number 1, I believe, going to next would just load up the second Pokemon. The idea is that, previous would take you back. Here's the general styling that we want for this, but like I said, definitely prefer to focus on functionality. So if we go back to the code sandbox, so that's generally what we're going to be building. And then, so here's the requirements is 1, having a dropdown that has a list of the OG 150 Pokemon. By the way, I've already written down some helper API methods, so a lot of that's taken care of for us. But we can still dive in there and look at what those methods are and how they work. So we want a drop down of the original 150. We're going to display a card that displays an image, the name, and a brief description of the currently active Pokemon. And then we want previous and next buttons that when you click them, it'll go to the next Pokemon or the previous Pokemon, depending on what button you picked. The feature list is flexible. If you have an idea for something you'd like to add, feel free to suggest it. This is I don't actually care that you know how to implement a Pokemon or a Pokedex. It's really just about seeing how you approach problem solving in React. If you have an idea for anything, let me know. And
great.
This says, the designs don't have to be exact, but there they are. And we actually already did the select because styling those can be kind of a pain. So that's in components/select. There it is. This would be too much to expect somebody and wide. Styling select is just,
Right.
But so why don't we first let's go into the API and kind of just walk through those things together. And by the way, in terms of actually implementing this, you can just remove the prompt from the return and then just replace it with whatever. So on line 16 where it says return prompt, you can just return whatever it is that you want to call the thing that you're ultimately building. So if you do return null or whatever, it'll just start from scratch. But actually, so on this page, you can see that on line 1, we have import get Pokemon list and get Pokemon description. And on line 5 and 13, we have this function that's kind of showing you what the return value is from both of those things. So get Pokemon list returns a list of the original 150 Pokemon, and then get Pokemon description for a given Pokemon should return the description. So there is a console in the prompt, and you should be able to open that console and see what those, there you go. So the first one is, get Pokemon list. So that returns a list of so it's name and a URL, I guess. And that's what that looks like. And then get Pokemon description. I believe we're hard coding it for Bulbasaur right now, but if you want to scroll down and take a look at what that response looks like, it's that. And then if we want to go into the actual API folder, we can see those functions. Nice. So, get Pokemon list. That one's pretty straightforward, and I don't think that really anything has to be done there. Get Pokemon description. Right now, it's saying Pokemon species /1, which is Bulbasaur. So we have to be able to get the current number somehow. Don't worry about the regex. That's just normalizing some wonky formatting that's coming back from the API. And then finally, get Pokemon sprite URL, again, is returning Bulbasaur, but that just returns the URL that points to the image of the Pokemon. So I guess...
Can I ask you a question about this utils here? This is the Bulbasaur one, and I guess that's going to be the first entry of that array that we're getting from the API, the list. So if this is like 149, then we'll get Mewtwo or whoever the last one is.
So
Mewtwo. That
is actually on line 22. If you see the URL is Poke API, at the end it's /Pokemon species /1.
Mm-hmm.
So the /1 is actually what's selecting Bulbasaur. It's not.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So it's this URL right here then. Is it? Wait, I don't.
Yeah, so it's not. It's actually a totally different URL. The intention here is that the get Pokemon description should probably take some sort of argument for the number that you want to get. So, for instance, Bulbasaur is 1, so we can just hard code Pokemon species /1. But if you change that to, I think the next one is Ivysaur, we would actually want to get /Pokemon species /2. And I do want to say that the get Pokemon list does return them in order. So if you select the Pokemon using, if we look at get Pokemon list, for instance, and so you've got Ivysaur open, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the second item in the array. That is actually the Pokemon with the number 2. So on line 22 here, if we were to change the 1 to a 2, we would actually get the description for Ivysaur instead of Bulbasaur, if that makes sense.
But nothing else in the thing changes, right? In the string, only the number of the Pokemon changes.
Yep, exactly.
So let's just say hypothetically speaking, I throw in here user input here. Then the user input can be any number 1 through 149 or like 150. And we would get that, right? Okay, got it. Okay,
cool. So yeah, if you're good to go, I would say I'll just turn it over to you, and you can start chipping away at this. If you need any help with anything at all, like where to start or really any clarification around anything, just let me know.
Mm-hmm. So I guess this select here, and then we have a card, and the card will be an image of the Bulbasaur. Would it be the URL on each right here? Would this be an image?
So there is one more utility function that would also need to be updated to be able to take any number.
Oh, this right here. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, got it. And so then we would have that image come out here, and then we would have the name of the Pokemon, and then another component or another like div, I guess, for the description. So this description would be from this right here. Okay, got it. Now, on our app level, we have log data, and log data will get me the list and Pokemon description. Is that correct?
Log data is more just so that we can see in the console what those functions return.
Okay. So if I were to down here return, let's just say like where's the not the prompt but the select.
Yep. So that's in /component /select.
Okay. And here I can return And here we can return the select. Is what we're looking for. So here we would have a select. And in the select component, we're going to need to get the props. So we're going to have to drill this prop down here to get that. So we're going to need a couple of states. We're going to need the state of, and I'm sorry, like about how much time do we have on this? I just want to.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So we kind of went over in the first section. So technically we have, and if, I guess the better question is, do you have maybe like 20 to 25 minutes to tackle this?
I don't know that I can finish that. This.
We absolutely no. Like this. Okay, so I intentionally made it so that this will take longer than the time we have. If you were to finish it, I know this is a mock interview, but we'd just give you the job immediately. The idea is that we have like more than enough for yeah. Yeah. Can I put 25 minutes down then, and we'll just work on this for the next 25 minutes, see how far we get?
Sure.
Perfect.
Yes.
Cool.
Cool. So here I'm thinking about, I want to render in this right here, the select that we had before, this thing right here. And the idea is that I get all the array contents of that API. So this list is what we want precisely. So let's see, let me just take this. So here we could say Pokemon list, and this could take in that prop.
Yep. So one thing that I want to mention is that the select it's just a styled version of the regular HTML select. So it has the same API. So basically, what you have to do in order to render data inside of it is give it options. Yeah, so this is not doing anything other than styling the native browser select. So I mean, if you go to MDN, if you search like MDN select, you can see what the API looks like. Drop the prototype and just do select MDN. Perfect.
So I'm looking at this one right here.
Yep. So yeah, so basically a select is it's got the opening and closing tag, and then it has options, and every option. Yep. Every option.
Oh, I see. So in this, do we have the access in the select component? Well, let me see here in the app. So select needs to iterate through the array of these objects. And inside each object is a name that we can use to put into that select as option values.
Absolutely.
So we can look through that array, but I'm just wondering, how you got list here and you just ran the function get Pokemon list.
Yep.
Am I to use that down here?
Yeah, for sure. So,
for example, if I say like for example, let const Pokemon list equals get Pokemon list, for example, would I have that array and Pokemon list now?
So sadly, wouldn't, because get Pokemon list return. Yep.
So I could do that.
Yeah, so there is a specific way to do this in hold on one second. In React, which is, so you're kind of gonna have
use
to
effect
state to some because you can't just await in a regular in a regular component. So we're gonna need to, as you said, like use effect. And probably some state to hold on to the initial value, and then we have that data, then we can use use state probably to update the value. Nice.
Okay, so here we can say const, and this could be Pokemon list. Set Pokemon list as what we want this, and this is going to be an array of objects, and we want to await the get Pokemon list.
Yep.
So I'm not sure if this works, but what if I were to set Pokemon list to await Pokemon list? Would that be possible? Like this?
Yeah, so that's not going to work. But use effect is the right way to go for sure.
Okay.
And the way that you would do this is...
Okay, how do I... Let's see this.
There you go.
Oh, there we go.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah. So in here, you could drop a use effect, which takes a function. And yep, you only want, exactly. So you only want this to happen once. So you can pass that empty dependency array. And you could kind of, you could do this a couple different ways if you need help thinking about which way to go. Like I said,
well, I was thinking like we can, because what I want to do is I want to make that API call, but I want, I guess, a variable to hold it and then set that Pokemon list to equal the result of that function variable. So if I was saying, like const API data, and I await the get Pokemon list, then API data now has that information. So exactly. I can then set what I call it, Pokemon list to equal that API data.
Yep. And this is kind of, if you don't mind, I can totally help you out with this next thing, because this one's kind of more specific. But so you can't, you have to use await in an async function, right?
Right.
Yeah, but use effect doesn't actually want you to make this an async, like the outer function an async function, because then it'll return a promise. So what you can actually do is just write a little function that wraps exactly what you've got inside the use effect. So you can call it like function like get data or something, and then call it after you define it, and that would have to be an async function.
Okay. And so you're saying moving this up here.
Yep.
And then calling get data?
Yep. Okay. And now I believe that your Pokemon list is going to be the correct it's going to be what you want.
So so with the select, then do I want to render that option down here and just call it option?
Yeah, for sure. So you've got the data, right? The data in Pokemon list. So so you want to basically iterate through that array and make an option for every item in the array.
Right. So I guess I could do for each.
So
for map.
Yeah, map will actually be
So I can map, and I know map will take the key and the actual element, or like the actual Pokemon. So
yep. So the first item is actually going to be the Pokemon, and the second is going to be the key, or the index rather.
Yeah, right. And with this, I think this might, does this have to be also inside parentheses? It does, okay. I thought so.
Yeah.
Like that.
And so one thing that I would do here is wrap the entire Pokemon list.map and everything in curly braces so that it actually evaluates as JavaScript.
Oh, would it be okay to also like write it outside this return and then just call it down here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so like for example, if I do have like const Pokemon names, then it'll be Pokemon list map, right? And this would be Pokemon, or I guess I could say name, Pokemon name. And then down here, I can just call that. It would be Pokemon names. Now we want to render all the options inside this map.
Yep.
So this would be, we would have, let's see here, in this Pokemon list, it's a map. So the Pokemon name will actually be an object, right? It would be an object. So if I do, like if I were to console log the Pokemon, oh, right. So let's just say this.
Yeah, that reads a little better.
That would read a little better, right? I thought about that too. So then we can just access, Pokemon.name. And this I would expect, right? I would expect.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, right. So now this, if we have the names, then what we will also have is options here. So it would be the option, and I forget the exact syntax for all this. But, so we like an option value. Let's copy this here. Option value, and inside this value, we can pass that Pokemon name now. And we also want to display it, right? So we can display that Pokemon name here. And we also have to use that ID tag. So I would say like key equals IDX. I think that should do it.
Cool.
But something's not.
Yeah, so the select, it needs to wrap Pokemon names. So instead of making it a self-closing tag, you're going to have to, just make that an opening tag and then add a closing tag.
Okay.
And one more thing, you're going to have to return the option.
Right. So it would be like that. Great, and now we have a list of all the Pokemons.
Cool. Yeah, awesome.
Awesome. And then I guess I don't know if that leaves us enough time to kind of take this further, but I know you have the design here. So we would want this card here. I guess in the card, if we have components for that.
Nope. So yeah, this one, you're kind of on your own to implement it however you think is best.
Oh, okay.
In the interest of.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you? Yeah, in the interest of time, if you want to drop it directly in the app.js, by all means. If you want to make it a custom component, it works as well.
Cool. So we can do card here, JSX. And then here I would say we can. So the card would have to have. Wait, where is that? So this card is a div containing like 3 things here. So let's see here. Here's the card. So I guess I don't use style divs. I don't know how to use them, but I guess from here we can send the state of the what would be the best way to do this? If I can just think here for a moment. So the idea is when we click Bulbasaur here, we need to access the sprite, right? So let's see how that looks like. So this will return this. Okay, so now the sprites would have some. I'm assuming if we change this number, then is that right? If we change this number, we would be able to get it.
Yep. So if that's a 2, it'll be Ivysaur. If that's a 3, it'll be Venusaur, and so on.
Okay, and so then if we have the ID for the options, and the options match up to the name. So for example, if we have index 0 here, then we have Bulbasaur. So I'm pretty sure we can use that index number here as the key to pass to this get Pokemon sprite URL, and we can say the index, for example, or the IDX as I called it.
Yep.
And then we can return that as here, like IDX. Now we can just pass that key into this function to get that URL. So here, so now the card is going to be in the app level, so we can put the card. Now let me just do this real quick, just that way I have div card, then div. Right, so now if we save this and in the app level, we put Pokemon names and then the card here, or no, not outside the select. Card is not defined, right? I have to import it. So I will import card from, I think it's components. Card?
Card slash card.
slash card, that's like that. And there you go. So we have the card here. Now this card needs to have that sprite. So that sprite, let's see in the app, I can get font sprite image or Pokemon image. Pokemon image. So I think essentially what we'll have to do is we'll have to call that function here too.
Yeah, so for the image itself,
we want to do it on selection, right? Upon selection.
Yeah, so I'm trying to. I think maybe that's the piece that would make the most sense to focus on for a second. Is given. So okay, so if I think about the API utilities, they all kind of expect a number, which is like the current, the currently selected Pokemon number. So Bulbasaur being 1, Ivysaur being 2, and so on.
Right.
So like, should we maybe like add a way to store the currently active Pokemon so that we can then.
So we'll have this key here, and is there like a on select? I haven't used select like ever, so.
So select does get an on change.
On change, okay.
Yep.
So I can say on change then, and then set the state to be that Pokemon name.
Yep.
So how will we do this? We can Set.
So I'm actually curious, what happens if we do this? So what if we pass a function to the onChange?
What kind of function?
Just an anonymous function that takes an E or an event or whatever you want to call it, and then just console logs that event so we can see what we're working with, you know? So you can just do console log E instead of const declaration, and now we're getting a.
I think it's because I stopped doing something here.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's clear the console maybe with a little strike through next to filter, just so we get a clear console.
Filters.
To the left of it.
This?
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect. And then let's try changing the select. So in the UI, just
okay, cool.
Cool. So so we do get that. And now if you wouldn't mind, on line 39 on the left, just do E instead of console logging E, if you could just console log E.target.value.
Yeah, that's I understand where you're going with this. So then we have these.
And then if we change the select, it will, I assume, give us the value of the.
So now we have the name, the value of the name.
Yep.
So if,
which is what we're setting as the options value, right?
As the options value, where do you see? Yes, as the options value, right? So I guess what we can do is the value we can put it here is the index 2. That way we can pass the value to the card.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Yep.
Would that be right?
The name doesn't give us anything, right?
Yeah, right. Because the name doesn't. Right.
One thing though is that these are going to be 0 indexed, and since Bulbasaur is the 0th index, but first Pokemon, yeah, you're going to have to just add 1 to this.
Do you mean like so?
Yep.
Okay.
And now we're like super close to being able to actually start using those utility API calls to get this data.
Right, right. Because then now the value, when we click, we can, instead of console logging it, we can set it to a state of like Pokemon index, for example.
Yep.
So we can go back to what, so Pokemon index. And then it would be a string. It would be a string.
It would be a string, yeah. And so that should actually be fine, because all of the API calls don't actually.
They don't care?
Yeah, they don't care if it's a string or a number, right?
Right, so now we can say set Pokemon index to be that value. And we want to also run the function with this when the card goes. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not very quickly doing this.
No worries.
I just have to kind of think about this for a moment, but I'm thinking. So on change, we can now click on like any of these, and we should be able to console log. Or I mean, we should be getting the index in the state, and we want to pass that state to the card. So here we can say Pokemon index equals Pokemon index, and now we'll have that access to Pokemon index in card, and so we can here get the Pokemon index, and we want to get that. I guess we'll use a use effect again here. Am I thinking the right direction? Use effect here to run the get sprite URL with the Pokemon index?
Yeah, this is maybe one of the confusing things about the API utilities. That get sprite URL just returns a string, so you don't actually even have to use a use effect. So we got a couple minutes left.
Oh,
why don't we just, right? Yeah. So why don't we just throw an image tag between the div and see if we can't just render this thing?
Yeah, right. I see where you're going with that. So let's see here. Okay, so we have a div, and we want to throw in an image source here, and do card. Or no. What was that? Utils thing? Is it even imported here? No, it's not.
Yeah. So I'll go see what it is called.
I think it's under API, right? API.
Yep.
So it'd be.
So it's get Pokemon sprite URL.
Get Pokemon sprite URL.
Yep.
This is in components.
Yeah. So
card. So
then API utils. Yep. And if you just wrap the get Pokemon sprite URL in curly braces because it's aimed export.
Okay, what's going on here? Let's see.
Oh, it just doesn't like that your image tag is still open.
Oh, okay. So this would be the source of that. So it would be get Pokemon sprite URL, and then pass the Pokemon index number into it. Oh, for some reason, I'm getting this, but I don't know why I'm getting the but.
It's totally fine. No, why don't we try? Yeah, can we try changing the Pokemon?
Yeah,
nice.
Back. I don't know why though. But.
That's totally fine. No, that's on me. I probably just wrote the wrong URL, but love it. It's great. We're selecting our Pokemon and rendering it. Obviously, first of all, obviously we're in a time crunch. And like I said, I can't stress enough how this is I intentionally put together a bigger project than the time allows. We've got state management. We've got looping through an API response to build this thing out. We're rendering an image that's changing dynamically based on the currently selected Pokemon. I'm super happy with how everything went. So yeah, why don't we call it, bring Don back in here and have a brief.
Hello, how's it going?
I think it's going pretty well.
I think so too. That was awesome. I liked kind of just watching from behind the scenes. Looks like your camera's a little frozen, Dan.
Really? I'm going to turn it off and turn it back on.
Okay.
See if that solves it. Are we back?
Try this. Here. No, you're still frozen. That's okay. That's not a big deal. It's I guess that's kind of weird. But feel free to fiddle around with this. But Noah, how did that feel?
That felt good. It felt like an actual interview. I think given the scope of what was happening with the React project, it did catch me a little bit off guard because I wasn't sure of I had to kind of think about the pieces like very quickly, and I think that concept-wise I was able to pick it up, but just using this code sandbox was new to me too. So just navigating through that and how I normally test things out with console log, I just wasn't. It wasn't really clicking for me here with the code sandbox. So it was a little bit, I guess a little awkward for me to use it, but working with Dan was extremely helpful because he didn't give away the answers in a way where It was like he was doing the work. His tips were very helpful in the way that he delivered the tips. Yeah. So I really appreciate that, that you didn't give away the answer. You just kind of pointed something out that would click in my head and be like, oh, I know what you're talking about. And that was key for me. So thanks for doing that.
Awesome.
Because I know this stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, that was pretty clear. And I think, honestly, you bring up a really good point around using just tooling that you're not used to. I feel like that's something that is super common, especially now that interviews are happening more remotely. Even Code Sandbox specifically. So I've actually done interviews in Code Sandbox before. And one of the things that trips me up is that Prettier is always like enabled by default. So like anytime you save, it like formats your code, which is great. I love Prettier to death, but even stuff like that can just kind of like trip you up a little bit. So I think part of the interview practice even is like getting used to working with like tooling that isn't necessarily your own. In the past, I've even had to code in like Google Docs, which is like absolutely bonkers. But yeah, I mean, it totally happens. But I think you like handled it super gracefully. To be honest, from my end, I couldn't even tell that you were like having some problems with the ID. It seemed pretty smooth.
Wow.
Any final feedback from?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the first 2 parts of the interview you absolutely crushed. I was really blown away by like the knowledge of some things that I feel like for a front end position, which, you know, I'm really looking at this from a front end position, like, you know, your answers were like very knowledgeable in some cases to the point where I like almost wasn't expecting it, like giving like detailed responses for like how all the HTTP methods, like what they are and what they do. Like that was absolutely awesome. I feel like just in general, you were so easy to talk to, and like, you know, you kind of like led the conversation in ways where you would like answer a question, but also give some like additional feedback or additional context, which was, I always think that that's just great. Something that I personally like to do in interviews as well, because like it's not really about the question; it's just about like the conversation and like the things that interest you and that sort of thing. So I took some notes down. Yeah, like your answers for like what semantic HTML is, for what accessibility are, like they were very like in depth, and both in depth and also like understandable. So I almost feel like if I was like thinking of myself as like a layman or like maybe like somebody who's less technical, like you'd be a great person to have on the team to be able to explain concepts to folks that really need to understand them at a more like base level, which that's a skill that I personally think is super invaluable, because a lot of times developers can kind of explain things in an overly technical sense when really I'm trying to get like the high level of what something is. Sometimes it seemed like you were unsure about something and then you absolutely crushed the answer, such as CSS specificity. Like what? You're like, I don't know, but then explained it exactly how it is. I think in the JavaScript portion, so you pretty much nailed like all the problems. One of the things I noticed just in general, which this is super teachable, but you tend to lean on like for loops, which I don't know, these days I was kind of just expecting like high order functions, like filtering and mapping and stuff. But eventually that kind of came through in the React portion. So that was cool. You know, just like the minor, I feel like there's maybe like a bit of a lack of knowledge when it comes to async functions, which again, like super like learnable, like that's definitely like on the more like advanced side of JS. But I did notice that, you know, there were maybe some holes there that we would have to, like, if we were to bring you on board, we'd have to like, you know, help you understand how those things work in a more deeper level. But then, yeah, in terms of the React project, I feel like I got a good sense that you know React at like a working level. And again, there's things that we'd probably want to, we'd probably have you like pair with a more like senior developer so that you can come to some of those solutions maybe a bit more quickly or in a bit more, I guess, what am I trying to say? I guess, yeah, just come to those solutions. Yeah, right. So like, for instance, like being able to like fetch data from an API, await the response and then update some state in order to be able to use it. Cause like React isn't going to let you write a async, use effect function directly. You can't use await in a component. So I have to know how React like juggles that sort of thing. Also, like not knowing select is like truly whatever, because like I feel like those are the sorts of things that you just kind of like do maybe like 3 or 4 times, and then it's. But yeah, like it was interesting seeing your process going from the data fetching to a input and having to like update some state based on the. To be totally honest, I wish you would have gotten to the solution a little bit more on your own, but at the same time, given how the rest of the interview went, if I had XYZ company and we were hiring for a like junior to mid-level developer, I would kind of put you like in the middle, like definitely more than junior, probably a little bit under mid. Would definitely want somebody like you to work with a more senior developer on your first like few features for sure, just to like drive home some of the areas that I kind of found that were a little bit more lacking. But that said, I would, if this was a real interview, I'd say like let's move you on to the next level for sure.
Wow, I wasn't expecting to hear that actually. So I'm surprised to hear you think that I'm at a level where you would consider me for the position. If I understood you correctly, you would take a chance on me to work with me and train me. Is that did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, no, 100%. So the general sense that I got is that you know the core concepts, which is ultimately to me much more important than like the finer implementation details. So I think you have like a really solid foundation for getting paired up with somebody more senior. And after like, after a few months of like pairing together and working on features together, you being able to like go off on your own, which is really like, that's what I expect from a mid to like a junior to mid-level developer. Yeah, no, so I think you totally killed it. Normally, like, thinking back to when I was hiring back in the day for somebody in this position, I wish we would have been talking then. Because we would have been like, yeah, cool, let's bring him on, teach him some stuff, and then have him start, hacking away at our code base.
And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm actually going to leave Dan and Noah's links, their LinkedIn links, in the description. Feel free to reach out to them and thank them for doing this. If you like this video, be sure to like it, share it with at least one more person. In fact, if we get 250 likes, I'm going to ask Dan if he'll do more of these. I'll see you in the next podcast episode. Happy coding, everyone.